People always asking me all these damn questions, and they so confused. I don't know what to tell them. Why he do this? Why he do that? How you do this? How you do that? Hell yeah, I'm trying to do what I want, and I get good grades. That's why I wear these hats with A's. These people recognize that's why they stay up in my face. Cause
people always ask me all these damn questions. People always ask all these damn questions.
They wanna know my play-by-play.
Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to
goes well.
welcome back to Objectively Aggressive Podcast presents the Lighthouse series, season 4, episode 6, accountability and responsibility.
Yes.
And you know, we like to start off everything. For me, I definitely like to start off with saying hello, what's up, and saying, hey, Dr. Ham, how you doing?
Man, week almost over. Always look forward to chopping it up, man. It's a good time. We got to sharpen each other, and I think that why not let everybody else see it?
Hey, why not? And I give the disclaimer that we just like to. We have a centered topic, but we're going to be talking about a lot of different things with the centered topic.
Yeah.
So we're all over the place. So it's like barbershop talk, or when you're in the salon or whatnot. We're just going to be talking about responsibility and accountability.
Yes.
And so we're going to try to keep up. And so with that, I want to do my sweet serenade to this because, I've been finding it very difficult to talk to some people sometimes, right? Because you literally have this conversation.
Hey, say their names. Who they name? Let's find out. I'm messing with you.
I know, right? This would be the perfect place to do it.
Hey, say their name. Call them out.
The perfect place to do it. But I say all that to say, it's been hard to have conversations with people because I feel like we can lead to a point in time where they will be forced to have some sort of accountability or some sort of responsibility for the situation that they're in. And so having this conversation, well, you see some people don't necessarily want to take either or, but I felt like we needed to have a conversation about accountability and responsibility. What you think?
Man, I tell you this, man. When you start to talk about words like accountability, to account. And I think when you unpack the word accountability, inside the word is something, most people's worst subject in school was math.
Yeah.
Because most people don't like accounting.
Right.
Counting
requires, it's a cognitive process.
It is. It is constantly being challenged by what you have not accounted for. So, for example, I'm okay accountability. Let's say, for example, I can accept, let's put accountability on a scale of 1 to 10. I'm okay with level 6 accountability. But anything above 6, I'm out. I can take 6.
Well, we started to ask the question, okay, so what's the difference between accountability and responsibility?
And so one of the things is this, I sometimes we use analogies. And I give the example of a captain on a ship. If the captain is on the ship, he is overall accountable for all the actions of his people. But if the ship runs aground, the person that was driving or steering will be responsible. And responsibility means liability, mean you didn't do what you were supposed to do, that you were trained and trusted to do, usually by some law, statute, custom, tradition, or whatever it's anchored in, to that word anchor, whatever your accomplishment is anchored in, it's going to be how far I think people want to push it. And when you try to say things like the buck stops here, what you're saying is that I am going to be accountable. And the buck, you can have both at the same time. See, you don't have to separate the idea to create the concept. I can be accountable and responsible Because when I operate in Imperium, as we talked about before, when I am the state, when I operate in Imperium, there is nobody else to be responsible with me. There isn't anybody else to pass the buck to.
Well, so accountability. So we talk about who you would owe something accountable to.
Yeah.
And so you would have to be in a situation where you would have to look at leverage.
Yes.
Or attachment.
Attraction.
Why are you attached? Or what?
Attraction.
Or attraction.
Attraction.
Right. So the attraction leads to leverage, attraction leads to attachment, which leads to leverage.
Okay.
So, and I would say love and gravity have something very in common, and that's attraction.
Yeah, it's magnetic.
Okay. So there has to be something in place to, if there's Imperium, somebody to take that Imperium and give it to somebody else and say, I will be accountable for this.
Yes. Delegating.
And
yeah.
Delegating accountability or whatnot. But then, so I think accountability is now this unconscious expectation put on people.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's an unconscious expectation for people to have it in relatively understandable situations.
Mm-hmm.
Now, hear me out, right? Because we were talking about what you asked me about a fart. And you said, if you fart and no one hears it, do you say, excuse me? All right? if you fart and you're hoping nobody smells it, right?
I mean,
you're saying, and you would not say, excuse me, until somebody smelled it. You looking around for faces like, who is about to smell the inside? Right? And so,
but
who's accountable? I'm accountable. Who's responsible for this fart?
Taco Bell and that burrito. But no, the reason that I use that analogy is because we used to have a saying in the military. It said like this. It say, do what your rank can handle. You ever heard that before?
Oh, I absolutely
do. And so what they're telling you,
what your rank can handle.
So what they're telling you without telling you is whatever you think you about to do, your rank can't handle.
Right.
They're warning you. Like and if you think your rank can handle it, because let me tell you, sometimes your rank can handle it if you in the right leverage.
Leverage is always the situation, right? So your rank can put you in situations where you can do certain things and say certain things, right? But you're still at risk, but you know how to push the threshold.
Yeah.
Right. And so I had to tell people that all the time because, somebody might ask. And so from an ethical and legal standpoint, you can't just tell people what to do, but you say, hey, do what your rank can handle.
And you see this idea in very poor leaders, because a very poor leader wants all of the power with none of the accountability.
Mm-hmm.
They want all the power, but they don't want any of the accountability, because as soon as something goes wrong, they need that plausible deniability so that they can now say, you know what, I wasn't set up for success. My mama dropped me on my head when I was a baby.
And that's where we're going to get. We're now going to start talking about where plausible deniability lives inside of understanding accountability and responsibility.
But see what the underpinnings of this conversation would lead to psychologically. Because if we confer that you cannot be held responsible for your actions, our system would crumble quickly, because we couldn't put anybody in prison anymore. We can't hold you responsible for your crime anymore if you don't have any responsibility. So the question then becomes, at what level of responsibility do we want to create liability? Because I don't care if you're responsible, are you liable? And see, when I say liable, meaning what will it cost me for irresponsibility? What is the price of irresponsibility to the price of responsibility? Because I'm willing to bet if you told somebody how much responsibility costs, they may reconsider it because it takes a lot.
That's the deterrent, right?
Yeah.
The deterrent most of the time to get any, so that's the motivating factor. Most of the leverage that you see in certain situations is going to generally deal with someone's self-interest and how the situation plays for them. And
but
so,
but to your point, if it's their self-interest, then you're dealing with a person on an imperium level. And we don't,
you have to get past their imperium. You have to get past.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. The only way you can get past it is to destroy it, because they lay
it down for you in leverage situations.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that imperiums can't coexist, because
I hear you.
Because what will happen is the magneticism is not like this. It repels.
Right.
Imperiums repel because your border ends where my imperium begins. And if you want to enter my imperium without permission, it will create conflict.
Well, that's what deferring is for, right? That's why we create systems of deference, right? So it's like, oh, okay, we're at an impasse here. Who's gonna make the decision? Who has?
But see, that's the beauty.
When they say, I'm gonna flip you for it.
But see, but the beauty of it is like, it's like, to your idea of who's going to make the decision sounds like accountability. Who is going to account for this, and who's willing to deal with the aftermath after it's over? Because when the responsible people go home, the accountable people are still there. It don't end.
Right.
It doesn't. Right. My accountability doesn't end when my responsibilities mean. For example, I am only responsible legally to my child till they're 18 years old. Yeah. Responsible. Mm-hmm. But in my view, I'm accountable every day you're alive. Okay. Or one of us alive. I'm accountable because you didn't ask to be here.
Right.
You didn't ask to be here. And since you didn't ask to be here, it's my responsibility until a certain legal age, but then my accountability after that age. And I can't defer that. I can't defer that because whether I want it or not, the only thing that will precede me outside of what I write, what we record, whatever, only that will precede me is this individual.
Right.
That came from me. And so when I think about that from a survival, from a mentality, I would say the reason that humans spend so much time with their young more than any other mammals, and you know, I think that the next closest mammal is 2 years, I think, of how much time they spend with the child before they go into their own. And I'm not sure which animal it is.
Well, so this is a psychological event that goes on, which creates the general, I would speculate, creates the generational trauma that we live in, right? Because in that perpetual cycle of raising and rearing, or going through the, you know, having to raise kids, you're putting your psychological stamp on your kids, and you're trying to make sure they don't go through things that you went through, and make sure they don't go through just regular things. People don't want people to go through suffering, harm, and care, you know?
Oh, yeah.
But there's also an overcompensation with that sometimes.
Oh, 100%, man.
And so talking about the difference between accountability and responsibility as a parent lets you, like you just broke down, be able to have a conversation when somebody says, hey, I'm responsible for you until this particular age, and I will adjust if I need to based on a socialization of you. Yeah. But having a deadline, because having a deadline makes people get shit done, right? Yes. And understanding what responsibility looks like and being able to cut it off and have a person responsible for themselves and being able to tap into their resources to help stay responsible.
Oh, yeah. And I think that what you start to look at is measurable. I mean, you show me successful people, and I will show you people who've had responsibilities. And if you were to say make an equation between percentage of how much the sooner you get responsibility in life, the more well adjusted you will be in life, because you had to deal with responsibility earlier in life. And there's a correlation between those two phenomena. Because if I had to open up the house by myself, cook my own meals, make sure I got a house by I was 7, 8 years old, you know what I'm saying? Then and no male figure in your home, then I think you see that when you start to add more responsibility to when I meet my peers at the ages where we're the same, but they were kind of like coddled and didn't really have to take out no chores, didn't do nothing. And I see there's a different level of maturity because I'm been birthed in responsibility. You know, like you're gonna have to add sometimes you're gonna wash some dishes, you're gonna do something in this home to earn your keep here.
Well, so we see that in so when you first get to like basic training, here we go, or you get to a place where it's new, you have to go through some sort of orientation.
Yes.
And so that orientation is to get you acclimated to the new situation that you're going to be in.
Yeah.
And it's a weeding out, it's a process to weed out people who feel like they can't do it.
Yeah.
So at some point in time, all these different levels that you're going through in your life, be it deliberate acts of becoming responsible or, accidental life situations that you're responding to, right?
Oh, yeah.
You build these habits and practices of surviving.
Yeah.
Surviving. Because when you first get to any organization or you first step into any place, if it's not familiar to you, you want to know the lay of the land.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you can easily kill yourself. You can easily kill somebody else.
Yeah.
You can easily get in trouble and get your job terminated immediately. So that's what the orientation is for.
Yes.
To understand what you will be accountable for, to understand what you will be responsible for.
Yeah.
Because levels of supervision are levels of accountability, right? So for the person who's responsible, they would have a manager or a boss, and then that boss could have a boss, and then that boss could have a boss. And every single one of them is accountable all the way up and all the way down, right? There is accountable communication and responsibility at every level.
But let's make a practical application to this.
Let's do it.
Because I think that when you start talking about these concepts abstractly, to your point earlier, you kind of miss some of the barn for the trees. And I think about it like, I'll use January 6th as an example. Right?
You think it's important to separate and know the difference between accountability and responsibility?
Oh, yeah. But I'm gonna say this. So I'll use January 6th as a perfect example.
Okay.
Everybody who stormed that Capitol was responsible for their own individual actions and should be treated separately.
Okay.
But there was one person that was accountable who summoned the people, stoked the flames, and let them loose. He's accountable. Now, there may be no legal repercussions or legal consequences for that, but he's accountable. And the reason that people don't see it sometimes is because they've been able to decouple the phenomenon of, well, he didn't openly say something like people don't know innuendo.
This is the plausible deniability area, right? This is talking about what our last podcast was talking about with incitement.
Yes.
Right? It's incitement of a crowd from a certain individual that has certain leverage.
Yes.
Because of their position and what they've done, scribed or achieved.
And by saying, I'm going to go down there with you, psychologically immunizes them.
Right.
Because
but it makes it, but it also,
I'm good.
That's like a deity though, because he doesn't have to be there. He's just saying, "I'll be with
I'll
you
be
in
there
spirit."
with you, and so I'll be with you in spirit. And see, what I'm learning though is that the research on incitement and these phenomenon are very, very well studied. But what I'm seeing happening is that in order to make the people not responsible, we have to, for lack of a better word, we have to whitewash the story.
Yes.
We have to whitewash. It wasn't it was just some angry people, and they, it was, the one dude said it was like a regular day at the Capitol. You hear that one dude? It was just like a regular day. And I'm like, okay, on a regular day, people shit on the walls, bro. Come on, man. Like 100%. Like, I'm not even that. But it's like,
it's a downplay.
But I think I used to think that people were trying to like insult my intelligence. I used to think that they were like really just trying to play with my like they thought I was blind or something. Like they think I could see. But that's not what I'm learning now. What I'm learning, there's a word that I think that sits in the middle of both, that sits in the middle of responsibility and accountability. It's a word that sits in the middle, and it's called sophistry. Sophistry.
Sophistry.
Sophistry.
Okay.
Sophistry. And what sophistry? Huh?
How you spell it?
Hey, it's with a P. No. The reason that I say it is that it's a PHOS sophistry. I get you, because when I think about what the sophist did, it's something that we're seeing today, that most people are not being able to detect. Here we go. Sophistry. It's a O. Oh no! Here it is. Sophist. A sophist is a paid teacher of philosophy or rhetoric in ancient Greek, associated popular thought with moral skepticism and specious reasoning or false reasoning. Essentially, these were people who had the gift of gab back in the day. They were the people who knew how to make a good argument. And because they could make a good argument, even though it was wrong, it was better than your argument. So they weren't correct. They're just better arguing.
Right. Finding the leverage point of the argument and winning at that. And not necessarily needing to be logically sound. For example, if we're having an argument and you stop using reason in the argument, right,
but I keep using reason in the argument, then we're going to see what happens first, meaning the leverage, or what will be the indications or the indicators that you no longer have a logical argument to make. This is where the sophists come in. See, they knew about logical fallacies before anybody else did. They knew I could move the goalpost. I could create a straw man. I could make the bandwagon effect. I could appeal to a deity or authority.
Okay, so sophistry is using the fallacious argument on purpose for the intent of deceiving.
Yes. I'm trying to manipulate you in the bad way. Sophistry. And the sophists are so good at what they do, most people can't see it. It's like a magician.
Yes.
They're so good at it, you just can't see it. And since you can't see it, you don't know how to attack their arguments, because you don't maybe not know how to pot out the inconsistencies in it. But if you talk to a sophist, they're still around today. They have different names. They usually go by doctor and all those other acolytes.
Damn. Shots fired.
No, they do, because I met a lot of sophists in my time. And I think I probably used to be one.
Ooh.
I probably used to be one. No, and And I say that honestly because I know how to make good arguments.
Same.
I know how to make good arguments.
Same.
Now,
I probably was a sophist.
yeah. But now I don't want to make good arguments. I want to make correct arguments.
Correct.
And I'm learning that it's the people who make false arguments today have the largest platforms. They have large platforms because
the people who have, say that again. The
people who have the largest platforms to share their message are usually sophists. Now let me tell you some of the indications of a sophist. Now this isn't a one size fits all list. This is the person that didn't graduate college at any level, associates, bachelor's, no level of college. They got a high school diploma, but they're the subject matter expert on this topic. Now, I'm not saying that somebody with no advanced education in the subject can't be a subject matter expert. You can. But there are certain things you only learn at certain places. For example, I can't learn how to be a mechanic in my philosophy class.
Right.
They don't teach that there.
Mm-hmm.
And what a sophist will do is they will study a subject just enough to fool people into thinking they're intelligent. They'll cherry pick data. They'll cherry pick stats. They'll use emotional reasoning, emotional arguments, and then they'll create a distortion that's too big for you to overcome. And they'll have a large platform because what a sophist will do is the sophist speaks to what the people want to hear.
Right.
Not what they want to know.
Right.
So they usually have large platforms. And some people may come to mind, as you think about the sophistry, some people may come to mind. And the reason that's important with responsibility and accountability is that you can never hold a true sophist accountable for anything. Because
they are specialists in plausible deniability.
Yes.
Now, you would take that same concept and say, all right, so we'll take a bias called, what's that? The Dunning-Kruger effect.
Yes. Dunning-Kruger.
Okay, so Dunning-Kruger will tell you that the little that you know gives you more confidence to speak on something.
Yes.
But the longer that you take to learn it, you will go through this waxing and waning of feeling like you don't know it at all. And then you'll get to a point of feeling confident like you did that first time once you stay with it, right? Confidence, being able to speak to it. So when I think about politicians, I think politicians come to mind.
Great. They're some of the best.
They're the best sophists because at the end of the day, when you're speaking to people's emotions and not to their rationality, you're purposely trying to drive an emotional event that doesn't have to be tied to logic anymore. It doesn't have to be tied to logic anymore because you've now made the new logic. Created a new logic.
You know who some of the greatest sophists are?
Rappers?
Preachers.
Preachers? Okay, yeah.
Preachers are great sophists.
I would say yes, because they get to dance in a spiritual world that nobody knows the answers. So they get to take this higher ground and say, hey, I'm going to speak about something that nobody knows, but since I sit in this position, I'm going to be the arbiter in how we discuss and talk about and what and how this is going to be ran. So please, if you don't like that, you can get out of this house, this country, this business. It was like, well, hold on. Yeah. You mean nobody knows, and you're just going to claim to know it all based on what?
Based on the fact that I speak on behalf of God. Listen, there is no greater distortion than saying it's the will of God. I'm telling you, it's the hardest distortion because, and just for the record, I don't care who you hear from and what you call him that you hear from. What I do care about is what you think he's telling you to do to me in my life. So if you're hearing from God and it's for you in one-on-one, bro, talk to him every day. But as soon as God start telling you what to tell me, I operate in Imperium. So since I operate in Imperium, you can bring a message from your God or your deity to me that I will decipher and discern and reject if I don't want it. But I don't take it. And the reason that the preacher is such a good sophist is because when you're being preached to, the part of your brain, your prefrontal cortex is turned off. You're right. They're going beyond that and saying, I speak from a higher authority, so you don't have to vet this data.
Correct.
Don't vet me. So I would say preachers are probably number one at this office. Only because, huh?
I would. You're talking about a profession, right? Because I would say,
go ahead.
I would say parents are the biggest sophists.
Oh no, I don't know. When I say sophistry, I mean it like who can do because I don't say them as individuals. To me,
I get it. I get it.
It's a league because you can have a church of 20,000 people.
Right.
It takes more sophistry to get them than a parent and a child.
And levels. So when so we're talking about levels again, right? So we're getting back to. So now what we're talking about, since we're talking about what's the difference, right? Since we're talking about sophistry would be able to turn a phrase in a way to make an event tied to a theory, or so we're taking praxis in reverse, right? I would say in reverse to say, hey, I'm going to take what I know and spin it wrong to make people do the wrong thing based on a theory that it doesn't matter that the theory is right or wrong. It just matters that it exists. And
it exists to explain a phenomenon.
That's it. It's objective. It's objective.
No, what I'm saying is that there are certain phenomenon that we know why they happen.
Okay. And
when we know why it happens, it goes from theory to law.
Well, is what I want.
So the sophist can stay in theory, but we got to go to law, because if you're creating, I would say this. I watch people who have social media pages, right? And I kind of just watch their messaging. I made a post yesterday. I said that the word demon is lost its etymological roots.
Okay.
The concept of demon today, in today's vernacular, would be like an influencer. An influencer has the etymological meaning of demon because the old meaning wasn't about good or evil or inherently bad spirit.
Right. It was just about maybe an emotion or something like how an emotion can influence you.
Yeah, but the idea that the influencer is probably operating in sophistry. And I say that because when you start to understand how they were used like before religion got involved in the word, it was used prior to. It wasn't malevolent until it got hold in religion. But the idea was that a demon could be good. They were they were sent to nudge you in certain ways, to push you.
Well, so some of the studies, like even talking about Solomon and Solomon's temple, it was said that he summoned demons and stuff like that to help build his temple, right? It's being able to have the ability. Like, I know I'm tracking what you're saying. I'm just saying, like, when you understand demons objectively, like can use when we're making love, right? Like we're trying to make love to our partner. in that sexual erogenous zone using our pelvises, right? Like your pelvis is where your ego lies via the chakras and stuff like that, right? So you literally use your demons to make love and have sex and all that stuff, man. I mean, the same concept applies.
And the reason that I bring it up is because one of the best things that the sophists can use is they can use words in ways like that can be connotative when they want to be, and then denotative when they want them to be. And
explain that, please, doctor.
Okay, so if I said, man, she hot, right? That has two meanings.
Right.
It has two meanings. One is connotative and one is denotative or denotative, right? Now,
Okay.
what I'm learning is that when I denote something, then I'm talking about it in its original form. In its original form.
When you denote it?
Yeah, denotative. And so right. when I talk to people who use the difference, who don't specify which one they're using, it's like it's open for interpretation. It's like, it's the strictly literal meaning of the word, like how the word literally means.
That's the plausible deniability, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So when you're talking about the connotative meaning of the word, now we're talking more figurative words, how we're using them. We're not using
figurative versus literal.
Yeah, it's essentially. But when it comes to literature, the only reason that denotative is because there's like levels to it. Because literal is about an action or like a story, like that story is literally happening.
Mm-hmm.
Not the word is literally happening. This is what the word literally means. It's fixed.
So let's talk about the word riot, like the word riot.
Yes.
Okay.
Riot.
If I say, if riot for me now is an acronym,
yes,
that means 4 different things in one, but the word riot means incitement to, you know what I mean? Like, does that go in there for you?
Yeah. And a simpler example, somebody went into Home Depot. He asked where the bathroom was at. It says in the back. He said, I'm about to blow this boy up. Now, the people called the police and thought he was doing a bomb threat. But when you know what blow the bathroom up mean, right?
You about to go take a massive one.
Yes. So when you say something that someone who does not understand how you mean that way, I'm about to blow something up, and in this post 9/11 world, saying I'm about to blow something up may not be the best way to communicate.
Right. Like, you can't say bomb on plane anymore. You're like, this is the bomb. Can't say bomb on the plane, buddy.
It's just not what we're doing. And so,
right. So it's about competence. It's about vernacular competence. Is what I mean.
Yeah. And I would say it's there's this concept called the Johari window. Not Johari window. No, it's called the Overton window. You familiar with the Overton window? It's the left and right limits of what we can say in society that's not fringe. There's a
Overton window.
Yeah, so there's a left and a right limit, like a left and right state. And if you stay in between these states, the far left is the far left, the far right, far right, and it's what you can say before you start to create incitement or before you start going too far.
Okay. So what would be the limit?
So that's the beauty of it. To a sophist, there is no limit. There are no limits. A sophist will say anything. They're not thinking about limits. They're thinking about moving the window in whatever direction they want it moved. Right. The sophists are the ones who move the window. They're the ones who check. They're the ones who.
That's the moving. Okay, so is this the moving target? Is this the moving target?
Yes. It could be.
Well, a sophist essentially is trying to create enough catharsis hear me out, enough catharsis, meaning emotional, that emotional feeling, right? To motivate somebody to do something. And so with that motivation comes what? Action. And so what I say, a sophist being in that position, I think sophists, I don't know, man. I feel like they have the ability to do a whole lot more damage, just like you said, depending on
Oh, yeah.
their level. And so as we get into our Cockley explanation, I want to say how sophists can dodge, because I was talking about like being in relationships and stuff like this. Like sophists they use biases and things like this to create a false narrative, right? That, just like imposters and things of that nature, it's a project, right? It's not meant to be a program. It's a project. It's supposed to end, but there's a motive and an end in sight. So, the ends is justifying the means for them.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and I see them of all stripes. I see it with education. I see it with not education. I see it like how it masquerades as competence.
Yes. Okay.
And that's why it's threatened. A sophist is threatened by a knowledgeable person because they'll see through it.
Right.
They'll see through it, and it's like you don't have to look hard. Because my cocky explanation would be this: if I want someone to disclose information that they don't want to disclose, there's several ways I could do it. The first way I would disclose it is I would tell them the information about myself first as a vulnerability. The vulnerability. It's a strategy. As a strategy, I would be vulnerable first. But I'm principled. As a strategy, I would say this: I'm going to stand up for people in places where I am at, because I want to be in places where I want people to stand up for me where I'm at. And I also think if I don't stand up for people in places where I'm at, I could find myself in a situation where nobody's standing up for me. So I want to create an environment where people stand up for what's wrong. They stand up for, what things are happening. But we are in a society now where we don't want to stand up for anything because our self-interest says don't get involved. But you are involved, and there is no plausible deniability. You're involved. You're complicit. And I say complicit in a very contentious way because, to your point about accountability, responsibility, there's a discussion in our country about our history and about how to ameliorate, if that's a good word, or the harms and wounds and trauma that were done to people of African descent here. And I take the approach that this is not a white conversation. I don't think it's a white conversation. I don't think it's a white conversation. I think it's a black conversation. I think it's a conversation for black people, by black people, and white people shouldn't be involved in it. That's my personal, FUBU. So that's my personal opinion. Now, if somebody would like to be involved in it, then you can be involved, but you ain't gonna be in charge of nothing. You're gonna be a learner. You're
an executor when we need the shit to be done.
Thank you. Boom. That's it. And
an advancer, maybe.
And and I say that in the way because I have to understand your argument before you make it. And let me explain what I mean.
Before you explain what you mean, do you mean the instinctual mind? Go ahead.
The perceptual too, because what I'm saying is that I have to know your argument better than you do.
Yeah.
I know your argument better than you do because I know who created it.
That's the instinctual mind. Like you can get into the instinctual mind of the other person to know how they're going to react emotionally based on their survival habits and tactics.
Yeah, but I say this because Muhammad Ali has a quote that I love. He says, listen, if 10,000 rattlesnakes is coming to kill me, he said, should I shut the door or keep the door open and keep those 1,000 good ones who don't want to kill me and let them in? He said, why don't I just shut the door? And I think the argument that he's making is, I don't know how to discern your intentions initially. I don't know that. Because when you meet people for the first time, you're meeting their representative. You're meeting their best self.
Right.
You're not meeting who they really are. That is a process to learn. How can I learn who you are as quickly as possible, as safely as possible, in an area where you're sharing more than I want to hear?
So now we're getting into a world of creating areas of responsibility. Hear me out now.
Wow.
And creating accountability. Right? Because now when you're asking these questions to get people to try to get to know each other, you're going to be asking not necessarily leading questions, but foundational questions that you can go back to question this person if they were to get out of alignment with who they present themselves to be.
No. Let's take this to a praxis level.
Okay.
And the best praxis level that we have created so far is a courtroom.
Okay.
So the courtroom is the place for praxis when we have disputes of law or disclosures that need to be disclosed. For example,
Or the streets.
For example, I cannot be compelled to incriminate myself. So you cannot. So what that means is psychologically, people don't want to feel bad about themselves in real time. And they want to codify that in the law because they understood under duress, people will say anything.
Yeah.
And under duress, people and under fear, people will do anything. Mm-hmm. So what we're trying to understand is, I want you to vibrate at a higher frequency. In order for you to vibrate at a higher frequency, then you have to be your authentic self. Who you are, your authentic self. And your authentic self is who I am when nobody's around, who I am when everybody's around. This is who I am. I don't have to play a role or a character. I talk about what I want to talk about. One thing I try to do with people, I tell people all the time, if my goal is to understand you first, I'm going to talk less.
That makes sense.
If my goal is to understand you, I will talk less. However, when I create a profile, because we're profilers. When I create a profile, the reason that I don't judge too early is because judging people too early is called prejudice, prejudging. It's judging before I get all the facts. Mm-hmm. And if I want to get all the facts before I could pronounce, because in the courtroom, the judge on the first day don't say guilty.
Yeah, not out loud.
That's fair, because that would be prejudicial
and impartial.
Yes, and they're supposed to avoid even the appearance of impropriety.
Right. So they are the one controlling it.
Yes.
They are the Imperium. They're the Imperium.
They are the Imperium. And when you have a body that sits at that higher level and they're being manipulated and being bought, then it goes back into this idea that ideology becomes a reward when people share it with you. For example, I've been in environments where I didn't always feel comfortable, but I knew what to do. And so when I talk to people lately, it's things that people don't want to share or disclose. And then you have those that are oversharers and over disclosers. You meet them in 5 minutes, you know everything about their life to include, and because they just want to share with somebody. They want a human experience, not feel alone. Right. And that's what I'm learning when it comes to responsibility is that I am not responsible for what anybody's actions or inactions are. What I am to do is, James Baldwin has a quote that I enjoy. He says, if I love you, I have to show you the things you can't see. If I love you, I have to show you the things that you can't see.
Blind spotting.
I have to. And I think we're so content with this idea of love that it's haphazard. Because there are certain people, I'm just going to leave you with the distortions. Like the Bible has a very good scripture for this. I think it's Titus. It says, reject a divisible person after the second admonition. Meaning after 2 warnings, keep it moving. You get 2 warnings. The first one I'm going to call ignorance. The second I'm going to call malice. That's your warning. Right. And so you get 2 warnings. And they will be clearly stated that these are warnings. Because what a lighthouse is a warning.
Oh my gosh. As the final thought came through. And I'm saying that you're right. Like, this is a lighthouse for people to accept the responsibility and be accountable. I would say, first of all, you can be accountable by understanding. And once you start putting forth praxis and action,
yes,
you can try this stuff. And then, it's experimental because it's not supposed to kill you. But, you say, hey, that worked, that didn't. But I'll tell you this, from an accountability and responsibility standpoint, I think from a human being standpoint, friend, partner, lover, I like to talk about those 4 things because we generally fall into those 4 categories.
Mm-hmm.
And so there will be a responsibility to act accordingly. I would think. I don't know, would you agree or disagree?
Well, I will definitely say that there is some social learning involved in these roles, because I know people who are friends but don't talk to each other every maybe a couple years, but they're cool. We can talk. I know some people friends talk every day. I think that each relationship determines its own universe.
I as far as a friend, I think you have associates and you have friends. So I think it's levels to that, but you have friends that show up for you, and you have friends that are there for you when you need them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you start getting into the associates and stuff like that. But for those 4 different areas, they start showing me 4 different ways you can look at things, right? Like, you can be accountable for understanding things. Like, so for a human, that's where the light is, right? We're energy. Like, hey, we're all human beings. So there's a responsibility to not be a bystander to the human experience. And so when you see something going on in this world, there is some sort of responsibility to respond in some sort of human reaction that most people will respond to, because we don't want to see harm and care. We don't want to see injustice. So generally speaking, that's what's happening. We want people to be good human beings. Now, that's subjective. That's subjective because when it comes down to life, the way we're socialized, some people are not held accountable and weren't responsible for things growing up.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people, I would tell you, people can create leverage so high that I feel like I just saw a video of some women, not bad looking women in some dating position. And the guy took on the tactic of asking them multiplication, because they bad or whatever, right? But he's like, hey, what's 8 times 5? And like, right? And so we find ourselves in this world where people just play into what they think people want to get into the door, but have no substance.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right. So if you have no substance, right, that means you lack perspective, because you're falling into a sophistry type world. You're literally just looking for the advantages and opportunities.
Yes.
and so I think that's important to understand, that if somebody is taking perspectives in life where you could be a friend, excuse me, but you're choosing to not be a friend and to take advantage of people and to make this into a leadership, you take the opportunity and to turn this into a leadership principle for you, to where you start partnering with other people to start fooling and deceiving other people into sophistry, right? If you're right, you're fooling people at a leadership level because you have the platform to do it,
Yeah.
right? You have to start being accountable for your behavior, especially if it's influencing other people.
Yeah.
Okay, like if
and
you're not responsible, but you're accountable. But you can be responsible if you are taking knowledge and putting it in a way to create people's action deliberately for something that's wrong. I would say there's some cause to question that, but I would say from for the lover perspective, from a love, and I think love and light are exactly the same, just experienced differently. And I think gravity falls in all that because we're talking about attraction. So we will always be attracted to some sort of leverage to make us want to do what's good, what's right, what's bad, and what's wrong. But you would want people to be accountable for every single one of it. I feel
but
like if
who's gonna
people,
hold them up?
it's an
Like
imperium, first of all, it's an
yeah,
imperium, but if not the imperium, the environment. Because so that's what karma is.
yeah.
This is what karma is and things of that nature, right? So you have to be so vibrational and highness, right? High vibrational to understand karma and to understand that if you don't have a good imperium for yourself, the God, universe, and the nature will balance it,
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And
It
so
will, yeah.
and so as you look at this field, this realm of lover and love, right? I bring this up because if a person is purposely misleading people that they love for their own self-benefit, that is the highest sophistry in the world.
Oh man,
And
I mean,
that's how using God's word to manipulate people is actually evil, and that's actually considered the devil.
I mean,
And so
okay. Just so you know how I think, man. I don't think God wrote no words, bro. Just so we're clear.
hey,
No,
in
what
the
I mean, no,
beginning
no.
there were the
What
word.
I say it is this. I'm not concerned about authorship of any book that was written by a deity. Only reason that I say that is if I concede that it was written by God, then I would also concede that it was tweaked by sophists.
All right.
So what I mean is that if it started off as the word of God, we've lost some of that along the way, and now we just got some word of some people. But and the reason
Is the Bible your book tip?
huh? No,
Is the Bible your book tip?
I don't. This you read that.
Oh, the Negro Bible. You know, man, you heard right around the first time we met. I think you showed. Did you show me this? Because I was like, we should write a new Bible.
No, man, I don't. No. The Bible, it does not need to be rewritten. It just needs to be reinterpreted. It needs to be reinterpreted. For example, the concept of forgive. Oh, my book tip, man. Oh, this is a good one. This is why that accountability, responsibility.
Right, because we didn't talk about denial. That's gonna be the next. We'll probably talk about denial the next one.
One of the reasons that we don't want to talk about critical race theory as a country is because we'd have to tell people what a theory is.
Ooh.
We don't know what theories are. See, we think theories are just some conjecture that somebody made up. No, a theory in a scientific world means that there is evidence. For example, when you say after World War II, there was the Nuremberg trial where the Nazi war criminals were tried, and the Nazis' defense at this trial was pretty much all the same. We don't recognize the authority of this court to try us.
Right.
And the crimes that you're trying us for did not exist before you made this court up. You say I'm a crime against humanity. What is that? What is
so that's a state of denial? And you're saying that that's a state of denial?
No, what I'm saying is that it's called ex post facto law. In U.S. law, you cannot pass a law to affect a person or individual. It has to affect everybody. Like Congress can't pass a law that says Kalvin Johnson can't do something, or you can't pass it after it happened. So if you do something, they can't make a law.
They make the law after to say that what I did was against the law.
And that's what the Nazis' argument was. The Nazis' argument was it was a good argument, but of course it would have worked in American courts, but this is international law, and international law doesn't recognize ex post facto law. If they did, then they wouldn't have been trying them because their crimes had not been. Anyway, the reason that I bring this up is because what I'm seeing happen is that the rulers make the rules, and responsibility can shift quickly to those who want it. See, we're coming into an era and an age where people have been so good at ducking responsibility that those who know what to do with it are going to be able to take it quickly because they understand that I am responsible, and they know the cost before they get into it. For example, like I'm responsible for these keys. They get into my house. If I lose these keys, I'm not going to get into my house. It's in my self-interest to keep up with my keys.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you start to look at responsibility, I would say that we're getting into an era where not only are people not wanting responsibility, they want responsibility in name only.
In name?
They want the responsibility in name only. Like they want the title, but they don't want the actual. They don't want what comes with it. You ever hear somebody say, "Man, I want that car just like you guys"? It's like, look, bro, if you knew what I had to do to get this car, hey, if you knew what I had to go through, I had to sell my body to the U.S. government for 22 years.
Well, that's but so when we talk about things like that, like, hey, I want that car, like people in real time in their minds level the playing field with other people.
Yeah, they do.
And then in real time might actually say something to level the playing field in their mind, which could be maybe an attack on the person's credibility and what they're saying. It's like, bullshit, whatever y'all talk about is bullshit. How do y'all even know? It's like,
yeah.
Oh man, right? And so this is, but hey, guess what? We're accountable I'm accountable for what comes on this podcast channel, and I'm responsible for what I say, right? I'm not responsible for what you say, but I'm accountable. Right? Yeah. And so I'll tell you this, from a money standpoint, my quick tip, notice, the disclaimer here is, hey, you got to be aware of what you're doing with your money. But I can tell you, I recently just saw that Carvana's getting a lot of attention. So if you play around in the stocks, take a look at Carvana. I feel like that's been a good one here lately. All right. And so that's my money tip.
What's the stock symbol?
For Carvana, I think it's CRNA, maybe. I can check real quick since we're
I got out of the stock game, but I would tell him, man, that man.
CVNA for Carvana. So Carvana's been doing well. I've made a decent coin in the past 2 days. So, and I want to thank my sister for that.
$132 a share.
132 bucks. And I tell you this, it was 119 2 days ago. It was 119 2 days ago. And it's what right now?
132.88.
132.88. So Carvana, the stock share was 119 2 days ago, and now it's 130 something. So if that doesn't tell you, okay, and according to what I'm seeing, that and Nuvo, those are the ringers right now. And I think the S&P, like when you talk about percentages, like what is the stock market, the S&P 500, like last year was 28%, or 30.
On June 5th, the stock was under $100. It was $98 on like June 4th.
That's what I'm saying. Carvana is taking off. I'm not saying
it was 100. It was $98 on June 4th.
I'm telling you this. It's about to be July, right? But
yes,
Nuvo went from 85. Nuvo was 85 last August.
Do you know what the company does?
What, Nuvo? Or you talk about Nuvo?
Carvana. What do they do?
Carvana are the ones that ships the cars to you, that brings you your cars when you order it.
I got you.
Yeah. Now Nuvo makes that. The other one that I'm talking about, Nuvo, they make that Orzenic or whatever that
they got a market cap of almost $27 billion. That's a lot.
Just a little bit. It's a little bit, but they're making that money. This is what I'm saying. Like understanding these stocks and understanding the flow of energy, that's squared away light theory at some point. I can,
Man,
but understanding money.
The revenue is last year was $3 billion. But their operating cost was only $500 million. So they made.
We talking about Carvana still?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
No, but so the rapid increase from not even a month ago, it was 95. I'm not saying it's like AMC back in the day or something like that. But what I am saying is that if you got a little change that you can throw it to make a little change, do it. Watch it, bail if you need to, but talk to your investor. But the money is there in Carvana. I know it because it's sitting in my account now. So I just wanted to pass that money tip off.
Who do you trade with? Who do you trade with?
Well, so I use Robinhood, but I also have different. So I have Roth IRAs, different things that QQQ is a good site for me because it follows the stock market and it constantly go up. So QQQ right now might be about 400 and something.
Man, I did a lot of marijuana investing like early, and I don't think it took off like I thought it was going to take off.
No, because I mean we're talking about marijuana, right? It's going to look good for the people. For the people who can make the money off of it, for real.
No, it's because a lot of it, because they still got.
They're still going to use marijuana to lock certain people up, man.
I think once it's removed from a Schedule 1, I think it'll open up more private investors into like the stock markets of it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because they're scaring people. You can't do when Rico sits on your back step.
Yeah.
I mean, because for real right now, only reason I say that is because when you talk about federal charges and you're talking about drugs, like that's scary. I don't care what they're doing in these different states. It seems like it's okay if you have two states that recognize marijuana recreationally.
Yeah.
And you cross the state line, is that a federal offense?
Well, I don't think that they're going to use resources to mess with. I think only if you have an inordinate amount. Like if you got like about like 30,
my bad. It would have to exceed a certain amount because between those two states, they have agreed that weed is legal, so there's no need to use resources towards that anymore.
Yeah.
The same way, unless you're moving big stuff.
And the surrounding states are losing capital. So Ohio just legalized recreational marijuana. And the reason they did is because everybody was driving to Michigan and sending all that money to Michigan.
Exactly.
And
Now it makes sense.
Ohio was like, we missing out on this money.
And
So,
they hate Michigan.
Yeah, that too. But I know one thing, when I see a lot of this, I think of it like when I see like when to sell stuff was always like, okay, I made my money, I'm gonna get out. How like when do I take the winnings and move on? Because I used to be a buy and hold investor.
Right.
Now I'm just like a
day trader.
I would say that I don't trade enough in the day to be considered a day trader, but I'm more of a couple of days trader.
Well, ain't nothing wrong with that. Like with certain, like with Robinhood, you got to have at least, a certain amount of money in there to be able to day trade. $25,000.
Yeah.
But see, the thing.
But that can also be equity too.
Oh yeah, no. Yeah, for sure. If you use Robinhood right, you could actually use the brokerage account as a savings account.
So I had a margin account.
I have a margin on mine.
Yeah, and I didn't know how it worked, but like when you buy a stock, it's like buying a house. You can borrow off of the stock that you own.
Right.
And it's good if you're hitting it good, because you just essentially like, I don't have another $5,000, but I'm going to borrow $5,000 off of the equity from these stocks.
Right.
But if you borrow it and you take a loss,
right,
now I owe $5,000 off my equity that I'm going to be coming back. So it's a lot into that stuff, man. I was in it for a while, man. I kind of got out of it once I got married, man. A lot of my disposable income kind of went away. You probably know why.
I bet. So I'll say, as far as I'm trying to be accountable for, the next couple of years of my life.
Yeah.
By owning my finances in a way and not letting them own me, because, we weren't taught financial literacy the way we were supposed to be taught.
Shit. No, we wasn't.
And shit. So now we find ourselves teaching our parents financial literacy.
No, I had no conversations in my household about what a credit card was, how to use. No one talked about it. My mom and nobody.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. No one talks about it.
So as you're learning, you realize that there's a curve.
Yes,
there's a curve. Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to now, even little things about this show, like it's just to help adjust that curve, like get adjusted to the curve and make it not a curve, right? So
straighten out as much as possible.
Straighten out the curve, but there ain't nothing wrong with a little curve. At least I heard. Anyway, so what I will say, being responsible with the money and the mind frame makes a person want to be responsible. And for me, understanding that I have responsibilities makes me accountable. So I think understanding both of them is important. But I think once you get a good grasp of what it is to be accountable and to be responsible, you can hold other people responsible and accountable.
Oh, yeah.
And you can be the Imperium at that moment, because people don't have standards like they think they do.
Yeah.
And I would tell you this, because if you think people have standards, you can ask them what their core values are.
Oh.
And if you can't get true answers, well, that's who you're talking to, people who don't truly have standards. They think they do. Because most people don't want to be outed as imposters, but I would guarantee you that most people are imposters in most ways, and they don't even know it because they can't really speak to who they are. And that's what's being accountable.
I mean, but I would say that if most people are any one way, then those who are not like that are the anomaly. If everybody's blind and one person can see, who's the anomaly?
In the land of a blind,
One eye.
Man with one eye is king.
And the reason that I say this is because sometimes I think the idea of education creates elevation psychologically, but it doesn't create elevation interpersonally.
Unless you have experience.
No, what I mean, I say that because some people, especially in the Black community, they don't trust people with knowledge. Culturally, we don't trust people with knowledge because we were taught by people who needed us to believe, not know.
Yeah, well, that's a generational trauma that we can address at some other time, but it's a catch-22, right? Because we come from a crabs in a bucket type existence from time to time too. So you remember what I said, we're in a position where people are going to try to level the playing field.
Yeah.
People are psychologically trying to level the playing field because we deal with self-doubt, self-hate, insecurity, and so like, who this person think they is?
No, but I say we're only dealing with that because we're not operating in Imperium.
Well, again, because this goes back to the spiritual. This goes back to that philosophical, spiritual conversation of having. Do you have outer introspection? Do you have inner introspection? Because if you have outer, that means you're giving it to somebody else, like a preacher.
Remember the emperor with no clothes?
Yeah.
Somebody had to tell him that.
Yeah.
Somebody had to tell him he wasn't wearing no clothes, but nobody wanted to tell the emperor he wasn't wearing no clothes.
Because of what the emperor's power to do to them, right?
And the reason I think that's important is because I said earlier that most people don't know how to act in Imperium, and you said some people do because of how they were raised. But when I say Imperium in this way, meaning it's not an introspective device. When I operate in Imperium, I'm not looking inwardly. I'm looking outwardly. So I'm not assessing what my feelings are, what are my thinking of myself, because I have a job to do. I have a mission in Imperium. As an Imperium, I have a mission. And the mission, and you can probably attest to this, when it's time to do the mission, you either are a go or a no-go. You can do it, you can't do it. And what I have seen is that those who are ready to go at a moment's notice are usually the ones that are ready for more missions. They get more missions. And if you are successful at the current missions you're on, if you're successful with what you're currently doing, what you'll see happen is that you will take that success and quantify it and say, if I can do that mission, I can do this mission. Resiliency. Yeah, I can bounce back. And when you haven't been on a mission, like you may have been on the mission, but you weren't the team leader. You were on the mission and you were just to do the Overwatch. but you're learning what to do. And I say that because I think that there's a tendency. There's a quote from Shakespeare. He says, "To be or not to be." And I think what it means to me now is that I'm going to be something or I'm not going to be something. But if I'm going to be something, what do I want to be?
That is the question.
Yeah, I'm saying, but do I have to be something?
I think like when you think about your highest level of conscience and all this other stuff, like is to be. And that's like oneness is to be.
It's like this. imagine you live in somebody else's philosophy. You live in their philosophy. Like, for example, Stoicism, Marcus Aurelius, you know, the quotes of, you know, the Stoic is just don't let anything affect you. Be the rock, you know, that's a philosophy. It's a psychology. It's a way to view things.
All the way down to a look.
Yeah. Yeah. Stoic, a stoic look. So if I embrace Stoicism, then I need to know, well, right now on Tuesday, I'm going to be stoic because I know I'm going to have a tough meeting and I need to be stoic.
Right.
But then, you know what, the next day my philosophy that I've been focusing on the most is existentialism, Sartre, and absurdism, Camus.
Oh,
Because what I'm learning is that existence precedes essence. You can be whatever you want to be because you exist. There is no limitation. You can be whatever you want to be. I mean, literally, you could be it.
I'm under the impression that we all now suffer from multiple personalities and we don't know it.
Yeah, or role conflict. And only I say role conflict is because I think that the idea that we have multiple personalities is a philosophy.
Well, so I'm agreeing with you, but what I really am trying to get after, why do you say that?
I say that because what did we call multiple personalities before we called them multiple personalities?
Crazy mother, I don't know.
No, the reason I say this is because before we had multiple personalities, we used to think people were possessed.
Oh yeah. Okay.
We used to think they were possessed. Some other spirit had inhabited their body and was making them do things that they didn't want to do.
Well, that's what I'm saying now. That's what I'm saying now.
That's why you ever heard somebody drunk and say they were under the influence?
Right, spirits.
Because if you're under an influence, you're not being responsible because something is influencing reckless behavior in you. So a spirit would be influencing you to do like liquid courage. Mm-hmm. It's influencing you to have more courageous. So what I would say multiple personality became is that when some people drink, they're mean. They're angry.
Are you that type?
No, I'm like life of the party. I'm like, let's turn up. Like, you know, but some people are mean. And so you would say another personality comes over them, but I would just say another spirit is on them.
Same difference, right? And I want, but this is what we were talking.
Yeah,
with code switching.
Yeah,
code switching. If you didn't know that different code, you'd be like,
"What's going on?
Why you sound like that?" Yeah. Right? You're like, why do you sound like that? But when you know, you're like, oh, you remember what was that? What was that movie? With old boy, from what's his name? Kenneth Stanfield Laniff. He played in Get Out, and he just played in that Moses movie.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about.
And he's talking like, and he's like, "Hello, I'm from the call center. I'm here to help you." And
yes, I saw that. Yeah.
What was the name of that movie?
Anyway. Yeah, it was good too. He was a sales rep.
Was that the one he got in the fight with old boy, but they were complimenting each other?
Yes, he was like, he was like, and you look at, and you smell good today. He was like, and you smell good.
Yeah, that was that one, right?
Yeah.
But that code switching there, right? So when we're talking about code switching, people feel like they would have to have a reason to code switch from a survival standpoint. And so they feel like they would be accountable for what they need to do. And I'm only bringing this back up because I remember when I first heard my mom code switch.
Oh, okay.
Now my mom, I'm from Columbus, Georgia. What up? And W.C. Bradley is there. And so W.C. Bradley is the parent company to Charbroil.
Okay.
So Charbroil, the grill, gas grill, whatever. So I grew up under Charbroil. I've had at least 5, 6, 7 family members work in some form of Charbroil because my mom worked there in human resources.
Oh, okay.
You know, and you know, God bless her. All right. And so, well, what the hell was I talking about, Charbroil?
You were
Should
saying
start thinking about my mama.
You learned your mama was code switching.
Yeah. Okay. I was thinking about my mama. I'm like, damn. So, you know, my mom would be, you know, be my mama and stuff like that. And she would get on the phone and just take this call, and you know, she'd be like, whatever. Then she'd be like, you know, hello, Sherry. Da, 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 da. I'm like, who is this? Right? Or when you call your mom, I know y'all remember when you used to call your mom or whatever at work, and there wasn't no caller ID, so she'll pick up the phone, right? And she's like, you know, whatever your mom's name. My mom's like, you know, Sherry Johnson and Rizzo. I'm like, Mama. But you would hear that voice, and then when she hear you, she'd be like, what you want? You know what I mean? So you hear the code switch between your different perspectives. And so perspectives make you switch. And the thought, when we had that conversation about authenticity, now when you think about authenticity should create paths for you where you are accepted, but authenticity should definitely tell you where you are not accepted.
And forced inclusion is rape. Psychologically, if I'm not wanted and I determine I'm going to be there, then I will force myself into be included. And if I have to force myself to be included, I may get there, but I will not be treated like an equal. And I think that's a challenge, because I think you were saying something about people want to be included. And I think to myself, like, actually, I think differently now. I don't want to be. Groucho Marx has a quote. He says, I will not join any club that would accept somebody like me as a member. He says, if you would accept me, your standards are too low, and I can't be a part of that.
Well, it's lonely at the top. It's lonely at the top. And if it's lonely at the top, if it's lonely at the top and you recognize that you're at the top and it's lonely, you recognize that power lives in the shadows, and so you don't need to be in the front. Power, if power leads to understanding that it's lonely at the top because leadership is power.
But I don't like the idea. I like it's lonely at every spot. It's lonely at the top. It's lonely at the bottom. It's lonely at the middle, because loneliness is not about where you are situated. Loneliness is about, do you want to be included? Attraction. Remember, like
we're talking about attraction, but from a distribution standpoint, where the averages are going to fall, people want to be at least average or exceed it. In general, in life, you know what I mean? Like, so when I say this, unless you want to stand out, you want to fit in.
Or you fit in to see what would make you stand out.
Exactly, but you gotta want that.
No, okay. So what I mean, so I'm speaking personally, because I think of it like, I'm not.
I don't want you to speak personally. I want you to kind of speak to what you think the generalization would be, and then you speak personally.
No. What I'm saying is that I say this because I don't know what the generalization is. I don't know. It's out my scope. What I was going to say is that the times I was raised as a Muslim, so I was learning Arabic before I learned English. So when I went to learn English, because I was learning Arabic, I had a learning disability, a delay. So I never really fed in from a younger age. I was never like social. So I don't know what social behaviors are of the fitting in, like, because when you're raised isolated from the groups of social groups, when you go to social groups, you feel like, I have to be more mindful of what I'm doing. I have to mirror behaviors because I don't know what I should be doing or not doing. So I have to mirror. I'm like, huh?
I got it. No,
Yeah,
no,
I'm
I got
watching.
what you're saying.
And so, but as I've learned, it's the places that I've been going to now. It's like I'm like in my office, when I go in the office, people say Grand Rising sometimes. And when new people come in, I don't tell, like I say good morning, whatever. But I say it because what I'm learning is that I want to be included, but only if it's the group that I want to be included in.
That's
In
what
the,
up you.
yeah,
That's
in the
what it
group.
is.
Yeah.
Selective, just
Yeah.
like memory, just like anything else. But I'll tell you this. So I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up because we're hitting an hour and 30 minutes, and I love it. You know, we keep going, but for the people, for our content, because you know we got to come up with some more stuff. I would say the next episode we're gonna talk about maybe denial and maybe the difference between equality and equity. But
Yeah, and we can talk about the cognitive dissonance that's associated with denial.
all right, I'm with it.
Because that to me, it's when you have nowhere else to deny. When all your denial is gone, where you at?
That's a good
Catharsis.
question. Oh
Catharsis.
yeah. Catharsis.
Catharsis.
Yes, so that's where it'll leave you. You're right. You're
You
not
can't
wrong
run
about
no
that.
more.
It will leave you in an emotional state of hurt, people.
Yes.
So, Dr. Ham, I'm gonna run this commercial.
All right.
And if you want to take off, you can. If you want to hang on. But for all my viewers, I appreciate y'all. We went a little bit over, but we don't necessarily have a scheduled anything. So if you haven't noticed, we kind of do pop-up podcasts.
Pop
Stay on
up.
our toes, right? Because you know, schedules are for losers. I'm just kidding. Schedules are good for people with good habits and practices. But
Try to be
when you do
responsible.
what you want to do, what's that?
Try to be responsible.
But when you can trash schedules if you want to, I mean, that's your prerogative because you have Imperium. I don't know. But do what the rank can handle, right? Either way, we're going to be out on this side and we'll see you later.
Mark one.